everybody? Welcome to another episode of Purple Insider. Matthew Coller here, and we have approximately 90 minutes until tip-off for the Minnesota Timberwolves Game 2 of the NBA playoffs. The playoffs have been a circus so far, and we'll see if the Wolves can take the ball and stand outside the arc thing, throw it up, and have it go in. Because the last two games, that has seemed virtually impossible. And I'm not saying that I could actually score any baskets on an NBA floor. Of course not. I make fun of people who say that. But I mean, what was it? 12 for 76 or something? Like, I don't know, man. Can I do that on half court shots alone in the gym? We'll see if the Wolves bounce back. I think they still win this series in 6, especially because Steph Curry is out. But I figured, well, we're all waiting for Wolves. Why don't we talk about some National Football League football? So what I have prepared for you tonight, and of course, questions, comments, always very welcome. Any questions you want to throw in the chat, it is your time, and I'm always happy to answer those questions. But I got a 53-man roster projection and every question about each position for the spring. So what I mean is, I guess rookie minicamp, sort of, but OTAs, minicamp, anything before training camp, what will I be looking for? And tomorrow is the open access day for reporters at rookie minicamp. So, of course, I will be there. Kevin O'Connell is set to talk after the practice, which will go, I think, about an hour and a half, maybe. And each year we go out to rookie minicamp. Last year was totally different because JJ McCarthy was there, but most of the time we kind of look around. Does anybody stand out? Is there anybody that seems to be getting the ball a lot? Is there anybody that looks maybe quick or that has some discernible skill? Usually it's about just the pass catchers. And this time I'll be interested in Max Brosmer, if I assume he's going to be there. Max Brosmer, the Gopher quarterback that the Vikings brought in as an undrafted free agent. What does he look like out there throwing the football? But mostly tight ends, I think. And I have made fun of Vikings fans for the obsession with tight end 3 throughout the draft process. But hey, we've got ourselves a battle there. And they've got a rookie that they drafted. They've got 2 undrafted rookies that they have brought in. So that battle kind of begins tomorrow. They brought in an interesting undrafted free agent, Trey Stewart, at the running back position. So there will be some things to take away. It's just not going to be quite as intense as our first look at JJ McCarthy in a practice like it was last year. So is this a basketball pod now? If the analysis that you're looking for on a basketball pod is take the ball from 3-point land and make it more often, then this is your place. I would suggest, though, my friend Dane Moore, who has, I think, the best Minnesota Timberwolves podcast. So if you haven't listened to Dane, make sure you go find his pod for the playoffs. He does a tremendous, tremendous job. Which undrafted rookies have a chance of making the team? I think that Trey Stewart is the one at the running back position that would be the least shocking to me. Logan Brown is another one on the offensive line. Ben, I think it's Urasek. Going to have to check on the pronunciation. The tight end from Georgia, I think it's Urasek. They drafted Gavin Bartholomew in the 6th, but that doesn't mean that he is locked in to that position as the 3rd tight end. I mean, they could always also still go out and have a look at somebody else, but one of these undrafted guys could just play really well and end up being the guy. Let me pull up the list here of the other ones in case I'm missing anybody. Every year there's going to be a couple. I think the outside linebacker position is actually interesting for this because the Vikings just don't have a lot of depth beyond Bo Richter and Gabriel Murphy. So we'll go through this when I get to the 53-man roster thing, but they've got the starters and they've got Dallas Turner. And then there's these 2 undrafted free agents from last year, but who else? And they've brought in a couple of UDFAs here. Tyler Batty was productive at BYU and stood out to me at the combine. And there's another one, a guy who had a bunch of sacks. Chaz Chambliss, what a name. Outside linebacker for Georgia. He was pretty productive at Georgia, and anytime that happens, you're going to have my attention. So those guys we're not going to see enough of those types of players at rookie minicamp to really have a takeaway. Outside linebackers, defensive tackles, even Donovan Jackson. What can we really say? Look, he's out there, but they're doing drills and stuff like that, not really going 11 on 11, smashing into each other, having a real practice. Now, during Zimmer, they did that a little bit more intensely. They have not done that so much with Kevin O'Connell. I think they're just looking for skill sets and anybody who catches their eye. And then it's a lot about the pass catchers, throwing and catching, who's open, who's making plays. But even then, for me to tell, standing there watching one practice, oh, this guy's jumping way out. I think a lot of times in the meeting rooms, these guys, and if they apply what they're being taught in a meeting room, is going to stick out to the coaches more than even some of the physical skill. But as we go throughout, if they bring in any of these guys that they have as tryout players, or as we go throughout the process of the OTAs and minicamp, that's when you start to at least get the whiff that somebody might be interesting. Ivan Pace Jr., he was not the starter yet, but he was playing with the second team. We're like, okay, undrafted free agent with the second team. Like, you've got my attention. And sometimes we could be fooled. Shout out to Davion Davis. There have been several guys throughout the years. Rodney Adams, I think, was another one that have stood out in maybe Stacy Coley, same year, I think. But then again, there's a Chad Beebe, there's a BC Johnson, where somebody stands out right away in the OTA and the minicamp setting. And you're like, oh, okay, this is somebody to keep an eye on. So those are a few of the guys, at least through the spring, that I will be looking at, and the offensive lineman as well, which is mentioned by Kyle here. Can you see Logan Brown as the heir apparent to O'Neal in 2 to 3 years? Maybe. I don't know how much. I mean, Brian O'Neal is the type of guy who could play till he's like 37, as we see from super athletic offensive tackles. I mean, Trent Williams is a ridiculous comparison for anyone, and yet for someone as athletic as Brian O'Neal, it would not surprise me. I mean, can I see it? Well, sure. I mean, anything is possible. I think we're talking about an undrafted free agent. It's like the odds of that guy actually being the heir apparent at starting right tackle are pretty low. So how about we start with, could he maybe make an argument for himself to be on the team? That I could definitely see, because so one step at a time, like baby steps, before we declare him the next starting right tackle, we can begin with athleticism and production from Logan Brown. He's been on every list of mine. Like, when anyone asks like who the undrafted free agents are that could be interesting, Logan Brown is a name that comes up, because you just don't see too many UDFAs that have an athletic profile like his who are also productive. So starting with that position, I think that he could be somebody that stands out. And there's another guy, Joe Huber, as well, that will have a chance. There's not a crazy amount of competition in the offensive line room beyond the guys we expect to make it. So even the Walter Rouse or the Michael Juergens, but that next level down, there isn't too many guys that you would say Logan Brown is going to be battling with. So if he can play, then he's going to get a chance to maybe be on the practice squad, work his way up, or even fight for one final roster spot. And it's not easy on this team. I know that undrafted free agents, they love to come to the Vikings because they know they're going to get their shot. But when you have a team that's this deep, it's hard to find spaces on this roster where you go, oh yeah, that position is wide open. That's why I think the tight end is, and potentially even the running back spot with Ty Chandler. Chris says, is Max Brosmer going to take over the QB3 spot? I think Max Brosmer has a very good chance of being their practice squad quarterback, but Brett Rippon has been around a lot longer. He's actually played NFL games. I think he's 27 or 28 years old, and he's been now with this team for a couple years. He's going to have a much better knowledge of the offensive system than somebody like Brosmer, who is just going to be getting his feet wet in the NFL. If he makes it through the training camp to get a practice squad position, that would be a huge win for Max Brosmer. It'd be pretty surprising if he could beat out Brett Rippon to get that number 3 spot, when Kevin O'Connell has mentioned Rippon as a practice player that they like, which doesn't matter a whole lot to us, but does matter to them. So it would be surprising if they threw him out the door to have someone who's never played before, but that you're going to have a practice squad quarterback more likely than not. And he has an opportunity to earn that, which would be, again, if you get your foot in the door, then there's always a chance you could build a career out of that. Aaron says, what are you going to look for in Ty Felton? I mean, when it comes to rookie minicamp, it's just fast, I guess. I mean, does he make a couple of plays? That's what we'll be looking for. What does it look like in person? The thing about rookie minicamp with wide receivers is they bring in a lot of them, and you need a lot of guys running reps for your quarterbacks. Most of them just can't run with NFL players. You can see it immediately that when they take off for routes, you go, okay, thanks for coming. It's like American Idol when the person sings the first three notes and you're just like, nope, that's not the Star Spangled Banner. That's how it goes a lot of times. With Ty Felton, knowing that he runs a sub 4.4 or 40, he's going to look fast. How fast? Does he get on the same page with the quarterback? Does he make some plays in his first day? I mean, that's really all we're going to look for there. And then there'll be a lot more. I'll talk about this in a minute. There'll be a lot more in the OTAs and mini camps just about where he fits in right away. Does he, get some mix in time with the first team or, things like that. But as far as just for rookie mini camp, you just want to see how fast he looks on a football field. You're really just getting a first kind of flash impression of some guys. And then every once in a while, you learn a new name that you had no idea who the guy was, and he turns out to be something. Adam Thielen was that once upon a time. Chad Beebe was probably the most standout one since I've been covering the team. And it's unfortunate that BB didn't have a better career, but he was one where you went, wait, this is a tryout guy? Like he's catching everything out there. Surprise cut candidate, Dusty. I have not thought about that really yet. Maybe one of the defensive tackles, not like the starting defensive tackles, but somebody that you put your heart into, like a Levi Drake Rodriguez. I mean, Taki Taimani made the team last year, so then he kind of makes a name for himself. But there's a ton of competition at that spot. I would not expect it. You said surprise. That's always a hard question because then you name someone and you're like, that's not going to happen. Like, well, that's why it would be a surprise. But I mean, is Rondale Moore a surprise? Is Ty Chandler a surprise? When we talk about a surprise cut, usually the only way it's really going to take you aback is if it's a veteran player who we assumed was going to be on the team, and then he gets beat out by somebody behind him. So who would be that veteran player? That's hard to think of on this team, like who that would be, the veteran player that gets forced out by somebody who's behind him. I kind of can't really find that. I mean, is Ryan Wright a surprise cut? Not really. The ones I could think of in the past went that way, like Terrence Newman and B-Rob, which was a bad decision. Bad decision. But Terrence Newman and B-Rob getting cut in, was that 18? That was surprising because it was veteran players getting pushed out. And we had assumed that B-Rob was going to just continue to be there. And they pushed him out for a guy who basically never did a thing for them, to Sean Bauer. That was a very bad choice. I don't know how much Terrence Newman still had in the tank at that point, but I think B-Rob would have been good enough to contribute. And then they lost Everson Griffin for a while that season, and they didn't have B-Rob still there. That was one of those overthink it kind of things. Like, hey, it's Brian Robinson. Just play him. He'll be fine. He knows how to play in the NFL. But they're like, well, we got this undrafted free agent who we might not be able to sneak through. One of those, they did too much of cute things like that in the later part of Zimmer and Spielman. But as far as surprise cuts, I mean, it's hard to think of one right now. We'll have to see how injuries play out, how opportunity plays out. If you've got one, let me know. Alex says cornerback feels like a spot where someone can make a big splash. Well, the guy for that is probably Dwight McGlothern, has the biggest chance to do that, or Jeff Okudah. Jeff Okudah could be that guy as well. As of right now, I have not invested a lot of thought into Jeff Okudah because you see this all the time. The Vikings do it all the time. The Ross Blacklocks type of, well, this guy was a first round pick. Josh Doxson was brought in here. He was a first round pick. Like maybe it'll work for us, the Arrested Development meme. And it usually doesn't. And that's kind of where I'm at even on Rondale Moore a little bit. I think Moore can be better than that and a contributor potentially. But as far as Okudah, he just has never really shown much in the league. But you're right that there is an opportunity there because it's not Aqib Talib and Darrell Revis and Stephon Gilmore. It's, Isaiah Rodgers and Mekhi Blackman, who's going to have to earn his spot. So I agree with that. Son of a Beavers, do you think they're going to bring in any more rookie QBs for minicamp for the next 3 days? Probably. They usually do. I'll have the answer to that by 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. But usually they don't have one guy out there throwing. Who was that? Was it Brett Hundley came in one year and was throwing balls in rookie camp? I think that's right. They'll have somebody else. They'll have 2, 3 guys probably out there throwing just to see. Bring in guys on an invite and they'll just figure it out. If they announced the invites, I didn't see it or didn't look at it. I usually find out when they hand us a piece of paper when we get out there that has all the invites on it. So we'll see who else is out there playing quarterback. Mama says Bo Richter is a beast. I agree with that. I wrote the story last year on Bo Richter and his background and how much he was standing out because everybody was talking about how well Bo Richter was doing. And he, I think, went beyond just practice or preseason hero to somebody who could actually make a real impact on the game. And the thing to keep in mind with him is that he's a great athlete. He has like a 40-inch vertical. He, I think, had one of those relative athletic scores near 98 or 99. I mean, just really, really great athletes. And you saw it when he was playing special teams. And it's hard to maybe wrap your mind around it because he wears that big arm thing. And it's like, well, that guy can dunk a basketball, but like he can. And he showed it last year in terms of his quickness and things like that. I mean, he was making plays in preseason. He was getting down the field. And if you can do it on special teams, you're doing it in an NFL game. Like to them, they look at it as that's proof that you can play in this league. Doesn't mean you could be a star or starter, but it definitely means you could play if you're making plays on special teams. So I think that's one of the reasons they haven't gone out and gotten anybody else, that they haven't gone and signed some free agent 32-year-old situational rusher, is because they think there's something there with Richter. Brett, now you're getting me deep in the rule weeds. If the international pathway player makes the punter, Oscar Chapman makes the 53, does he count against the 53? I don't know the answer to that question because I've never seen one make it, or at least on the Vikings. It was the tight end and Sammy's Reyes. Was he it? Was he an international player? Moritz Bowringer. Is that his name? But yeah, I haven't seen someone make. I would think so, but that's somebody Google that and tell me the answer to that question. I was assuming that if they made the team and they're actually back there punting, that's part of the 53-man roster, not an exception. It's more of so you can give them a chance to develop without using a roster spot. But again, somebody will have the answer to that question. Jason says Tommy Hill is the one I'll be watching. Yeah. I mean, cornerback is like we were talking about Dwight McGlothern and Jeff Okudah, but there's a few guys they brought in here that are possibilities. Jeremiah Vaughn is a guy from Utah. Keenan Garber from Kansas State. So there's some players that they've brought in that are going to have a chance to get on the field with the third team and work their way up. It's just, are they going to be able to do it or not? I mean, but because there's maybe spots there for the practice squad, but one person gets hurt. And then all of a sudden, that's how you get Dwight McGlothern last year. Dwight McGlothern was not even considered, I don't think, was not even considered one of the highest paid guys that was out there for undrafted free agents, I think, or at least rated. Maybe it was rated by like ESPN or whatever. And he just made plays. So they got to get out there and do it, but the opportunity is there. Skywalking McCarthy says, I think the edge room is set minus Gabe Murphy. Yeah, I really think it is. And we'll see what happens with Gabe Murphy if he's able to take a step next year. But I just thought that they would probably go and get like that one extra little piece at edge rusher. Maybe I didn't Emmanuel Ogbah sign recently. He was a guy that was with Brian Flores in Miami. And I kind of thought, well, that's your May signing. We've been talking about it a little bit, how I just don't think they're going to bring in too many guys for May signings. They might, maybe one or two. Maybe there will be a situational edge player. But for the most part, they're just saying we are buying the 2 starters, Dallas Turner, and then these 2 undrafted free agents from last year. And it kind of speaks to how good they've been at finding these undrafted free agents. But Murphy was only there for a couple weeks in training camp, then got hurt. And we didn't see him until the Falcons game, and he shows up and plays 20 snaps, and then we didn't see him again after that. I'm not sure about him as much as I am about Richter because we saw a lot of Richter playing on special teams, and you can actually draw something away from that. 10 players got an invite to try out and tour kicker and long snapper. Okay. I mean, I didn't really look at the list because I figured I'm going to just see them on a field on Friday. And if I knew the long snapper's name, that would even go above and beyond what I'm usually capable of when it comes to this. Harrison Phillips is not a surprise cut. No, Harrison Phillips does not count. Neither does Blake Brandel. Those guys aren't getting cut. Harrison Phillips just signed an extension last year. He's played very well for this team on top defenses the last 2 years, top 5 defense. He's playing 700, 800 snaps. Like they're not cutting him. They need somebody to, like stop the run because they brought in 2 guys that could go after the passer. I don't think, oh yeah, the Armon Watts, that was a surprise cut. Yeah, you're right about that because they changed systems and he just was not a really good fit. And the unfortunate part about that for me was I had just written a story about the adjustment that Armon Watts was making. And so I talked to him for, I don't know, 15 minutes about all the different things that he was looking at that were different in this system and that system. And I was like, oh yeah, good job, me, good story. And then like the guy gets cut because he didn't fit in the system. Whoops. Is CJ Ham a surprise cut? I get, yeah, it would be. It would be. I don't think CJ Ham's getting cut. I really don't. I just think he's too valuable to the leadership of the team, but also special teams. That's something where we look at and go, well, there's another spot there that you could just replace him with somebody else, but he's on every single special teams unit, and that means somebody else doesn't have to do it. And then you look at how Kevin O'Connell used them last year in the run game, used them a lot, actually more than previous years. And he still is a guy that they can work in against certain types of defenses in a pass protection role. And that was another one I wrote about 2 years ago is how Kevin O'Connell had carved out this pass protection role for CJ Ham. And I talked to Jerome Felton and who was the other fullback? Johnny Stanton, who had played for the Vikings and the Browns. I talked to those guys for the story just about carving out that role in pass protection. And I think they find a lot of ways at the end of the year when you add up special team snaps, run blocking, and pass blocking. It's a lot of CJ Ham on the field. So, okay. So you're saying you're right. It would be a surprise. That's one that I don't think is that realistic, but that would be a surprise candidate. That's what I'm saying about how when we talk about surprise cuts, is it a surprise or not? Adds to the conversation. Chris says, would love to see that 5'8" wide receiver. Is it Sealis? Become the punt returner, be the next Marcus Sherrills. Here's what I know about punt returning. Marcus Sherrills, I don't think anybody has any idea what a freak that man was. It is so hard. In college, they punch you the ball, you catch it, you go. I'm not saying they have no ability to do different things with it, but it's not, I mean, you see them catch it and they kind of run like all, and then kick it. In the NFL, these guys hit the ball so high and they also know how to make it fall out of the sky based on how they kicked it. So like a wiffle ball player and how they can spin the ball and make it go, right? Like that's what these punters can do. And it's so hard to catch the ball coming out of the sky. So the guy, the 5'8" guy, he might be quick, but can he even catch it? I always start there. Can he even catch the ball? And if he can, then you've got something. There is a wide open punt returning situation though. And that guy might be a part of it. Whoever can actually catch them is at the front of the line to start. Yeah. They have the punter out there. Yeah, they're going to have Oscar Chapman's going to be out there. And I'm sure they're just going to be rolling different guys. Oscar Chapman is the undrafted free agent from Auburn that they picked up. And I'm sure they'll just roll a bunch of different guys to see if they can punt return. I don't know if we'll see that at the one open practice to us because they're there for 3 days, but there's only one open to us. So I don't know if I'll see that or not, or if that's something they'll do on a different day. Who do I see returning kicks, Moore or Felton or both? It might be neither. I still think that Ty Chandler is the best returner on this team. Rondale Moore was not a special kick returner in college, which is funny because he's really good with the ball in his hands. And Ty Felton has basically never done it. He was in just a couple of kick returns. He might be a factor. I think they're going to try him, but I have no idea what that looks like because he didn't do it in college. I suppose even if he did, it's a completely different play. I also wonder about when you watch the new kick return, one of the things that I noticed is that the actual kick returner gets rocked a lot of times. He is moving so fast and everybody else just kind of comes off a block and then drills him at full speed. So you're like the Wile E. Coyote running full speed and then slamming into a wall. That I'm not entirely sure that 180-pound or whatever he is, Ty Felton, that they want him to do that. You might want Trey Stewart, the running back, who's an undrafted free agent, to take a shot at it. But this could keep Ty Chandler on the team, is the fact that he's done it before. He's done well at it before. And he's had a couple of returns, long ones or returns for touchdowns that have been taken back, actually. But I think he's an above average kick returner. Maybe it'll be more Felton back with him. I would be concerned about injuries for both of those guys. Moore has a serious history of it. Richter is a freak athlete. You're absolutely right about that. He was super productive in college as well. You could really see it. Let's see. Sean says, since this was such a heavy running back draft class, any veteran cuts you could see coming from other teams that we could add? Anyone but Alexander Madison. Not off the top of my head that I can think of, but like your logic makes sense for why there would be someone. And I've still thought that that was possible for the Vikings to get through training camp and see where Ty Chandler is at and then make the move there. You could have said, is Cam Akers coming back? And there's always a halfway decent chance that Cam Akers is coming back. That's for sure. I would never count that out. And he played well for them last year. Was it about 4.5 yards per carry? But you're right about that. There are veterans that are going to be fighting for their lives on rosters all over because a lot of teams did add running backs in the draft. But if you've got a nomination for who you think that could be around the league, feel free to toss it in the chat. I mean, I don't know right offhand, like every single team that drafted a running back or who could be pushed out, but your logic makes a lot of sense. Son of Beavers doesn't think that Jay Ward or Blake Brandel are making the team. Nah, they are. Jay Ward is a 4th-round draft pick who played a ton of special team snaps last year, and they've talked about his development. They also are one man shorter in the safety room. They have not replaced that man. And Brandel, I would not cut Blake Brandel. No way. Because I mean, you're talking about a guy who could play multiple positions, who has shown he could play 17 games if you have to. I think that backups on the offensive line are very, very important. When you look at how rarely an offensive line plays all 5 guys for a full season across the line, and then the injuries they've had over the years, you want somebody back there who can play for 17 games. Chandler is the one that has the best chance. The punter would count toward the 53, just not the practice squad. That's what I thought. That's what I thought. Are you going to be watching the rookie punter? Of course. Who are we talking to here? Here's what I want to know. I just want to know. I've been hoodwinked by Matt Daniels 2 years in a row, maybe 3 years, about punting competitions. Last year, we thought they brought in some guy who was, I think, a former wide receiver or something. They said, no, we've got a real competition here. And it wasn't. It wasn't at all. Ryan Wright just won the competition. There was the punt off that was supposed to happen the first year, and the punt off never happened. But maybe Oscar Chapman can make things interesting. Will we get a comp pick for Trent Sherfield? I unfortunately do not believe so. I think Sherfield signed a very, very small contract. Jadeveon Clowney got cut today. He did. The nice thing about where the Vikings roster is that we don't have to do that thing where every player who gets cut for a reason, we go, should the Vikings bring him in? Should the Vikings trade for Chris Herndon? Right? Like, we don't have to do that. And I mean, Jadeveon Clowney's probably got a little juice left, but I don't think that's someone you really need to bring in. I mean, they were the worst. Carolina was the worst defense in the entire league last year. And Jadeveon Clowney was on that D-line and just didn't do a whole heck of a lot. Who is the hot take dark horse to lose a starting spot? I mean, would that just be if Donovan Jackson doesn't win the left guard spot? Maybe that would be it. Who else could lose it though? There's so many veterans on this team. Could Aaron Jones lose the starting spot to Jordan Mason? That's possible if he fumbles, if he gets hurt, or if he has any issues. I mean, in training camp, through the season, I guess anybody can lose their job depending on how it's going. Could it be Ivan Pace Jr.? Maybe Ivan Pace Jr. would be the guy that but I don't really know. I mean, it's not like they brought in a high pick at linebacker, but Eric Wilson's a pretty good player. And it's not like you could just sort of roll the ball out and you've got the job when Eric Wilson is the backup. Eric Wilson knows how to play football. He has been a starter before. He's played 600 snaps in the league before. Maybe it could be a reduced role there. Maybe, I mean, is there a competition with Theo Jackson and Jay Ward? This roster feels like this is what we're going to be doing in OTAs, minicamp, training camp is pretty much JJ McCarthy watch, because this roster just doesn't have all these crazy battles. I think over the last couple of years, there's been a lot more of them, but this one feels like it's pretty solid for where it is right now. I mean, maybe Mekhi Blackman could lose it to Jeff Okudah, or I mean, that's possible if Blackman doesn't come out well. Kerpluppy says, when can we see some practices from Mekhi Blackman? Curious where he will land. I mean, I think he's landing as a starting nickel for them. Rotating in, it's going to be Rodgers and Byron Murphy, and then rotating in kind of the Shaq Griffin type of role. I would expect that from him if he's not starting on the outside over Isaiah Rodgers. I think they like Rodgers, but they also liked Blackman last year. But as far as the 53 is definitely going to be on the roster. I just think it's probably one of those two roles. Skywalking McCarthy says Flores and Quasey seem to like the service academy guys. Okay, that's interesting. Peyton Zordic. This is a deep research from you, Skywalking McCarthy, but interesting enough. Yeah, well, I think that those guys can fly under the radar. They also had Andre Carter, who just did not really work out, but had all those sacks and stuff. That it's definitely something you would look at as, well, maybe people overlook these types of players and the athletes that they actually are. Who is the best basketball player on the Vikings, and are they available for the game tonight? Yeah, I promise you the best basketball player on the Vikings could not spend 2 seconds on the NBA floor, and they would tell you that. But fun little anecdote, though, if you didn't know, Brian O'Neill was teammates with Dante DiVincenzo in high school. And O'Neill was actually the guy who won player of the year for his state. Was that Pennsylvania? Wherever it was. That I think was it Pennsylvania? That he won like player of the year for his state. Not DiVincenzo, but it was actually Brian O'Neill. That does not mean Brian O'Neill is a better basketball player these days, or ever really was, than DiVincenzo. There's a lot of these guys who are good. Byron Murphy Jr. is very good at basketball. He is the nephew of Mike Bibby, I believe. I talked with him about that one time. And last year they had a basketball hoop in the locker room and they were all shooting, so you could get a sense for who knows how to shoot a ball and who doesn't. Byron Murphy has a nice looking shot. There's a lot of those guys who would claim that they were good enough. There are definitely not many guys who are actually good enough to play in the NBA. Ham Darnold. That's what I loved about Brandon Powell. There was no chance of a good return, but you could trust him to make the catch. There were maybe one or two times where it bounced off him and then he jumped on it. I don't remember if they had any lost fumbles with Brandon Powell. Oh, he had a return in Philly where it popped out. But as far as actually catching it, I think he caught most of them. But you're right about that. It was not an adventure. Hot take, Van Ginkel loses the starting spot to Turner. It just doesn't work that way on this defense. It just doesn't work this way, because on this defense, he's going to start, but it's really all those guys are going to play. Now, what you could see is Van Ginkel's snap count going down, but that would be a good thing if his snap count went down, because last year he was out there for every single play. He was out there all the time, every single play. And you get banged up that way and you get fatigued that way. This year, I don't think it'll be as much of that when they have Dallas Turner to rotate. But there's almost no chance Van Ginkel would lose his job to Turner. It would be more like Turner gets more reps and Van Ginkel's snap count maybe goes down a little bit if Turner is playing extremely well. Kerpluppy says, is Ant good enough to play in the NFL? There is absolutely no question that Ant is good enough to play in the NFL. This came up not too long ago, and the difference between the NFL and the NBA players, there's a big difference. And that difference is in the NBA, there are 12 spots for you. And really, it's about 7, right? Guys that are actually playing, 8 guys that are actually playing in the NBA. That bar is so high. In the NFL, there's 53. There are 8 of them. You are drawing from the tiniest percentage of absolute freaks that play in the NBA. The other part is if NFL players could play in the NBA, they would. They make a lot more money and they get a lot less banged up. Any player, I know there's probably some guys who are like, no, I love football so much. No, no way. No way. If you could go out there, throw up threes, yam on some people, and like that's it, and you make to be. Remember when Cole Aldridge was making like 12 million bucks or something to be on the last person on the bench? I mean, 12 million bucks is like a good number 3 receiver in the NFL. I mean, they get paid so much more. I'm not saying it's easier. It's hard to be an NBA, a pro athlete's hard, but physically, the amount of abuse that you take in the NFL is just objectively much greater. Anthony Edwards, had he wanted to be a receiver, an edge rusher, something like that, he could have done it. I mean, he can jump 40 inches in the air at what, 6'5" and 240 pounds. I mean, that is insane. What's that? He's like Mike Evans. Would he be Mike Evans? Think of how big Mike Evans is. That would be Anthony Edwards. He would just outrun people, outjump people. Yeah, those NBA guys are a different breed. The size and speed and flexibility combination. If you have ever stood next to like an NBA player, when you're watching them, even from the stands or at home, you're like, oh, well, that guy, he's pretty small out there. And some guys are like Mike Connolly's not the biggest guy. But a lot of times you're like, oh, yeah, he's like not the biggest guy out there. And then he'll be like 6'5" and towering over you. And you're like, oh, okay. And that guy can also can threes, jump out of the gym. Like you could fit into a role. That's another thing too. With an NBA player going to the NFL, you could fit him in somewhere. You could throw passes to him. You could have him, I don't know, develop as an edge rusher with the explosiveness. It's not like you can really fit in a wide receiver who thinks he's great at basketball who's like 6'1". That's hard to do. Or a Byron Murphy who's maybe 5'11". There's no way he could get out there and play with those guys. Rich says, what are your expectations for the team this year? And do you think that the big leg got his mojo back? You mean Will Reichard? I mean, Will Reichard had a really, really great run until he got injured. And once he got injured, it was not the same. I think he might have pushed himself back a little fast because John Parker Romo was kind of crushing it. And I expect that he's going to be just fine. It's really that health issue. Does that crop up again? And if it does, they have to make sure that they have a good backup kicker like they did last year in John Parker Romo. As far as the expectations for the team, next week we're going to have a lot of fun with the schedule coming out. I think it's Wednesday that the schedule comes out, and we'll have some good discussion about the expectation, things like that. But I can just say, because that's a whole like hour-long podcast with 3 different guests or something. The short form answer is they have a team that's capable of competing for a Super Bowl. And I don't think you should change that standard just because the quarterback is new. Like that's the decision they made on a team that they went all in on. They didn't shoot for the future. They didn't trade down and stack draft picks. They didn't sign 26-year-old free agents. They signed star guys who are in their prime or older and ready to win right now. So if all their moves say we're ready to win right now, then that's the standard we should set for them. And that's my expectation. My expectation is win the North. My expectation is that they should go into the playoffs and win games in the playoffs and have a deep playoff run. And I know that so much rests on the uncertainty of McCarthy, but that's also the decision they made. They could have brought back a quarterback on a franchise tag who guaranteed them a certain level of play. And they said, we can do better with McCarthy and the other guys that they added. So if you're saying we can do better, then it needs to be better than it was last year, where they were a good but flawed team that had at the end of the day, a very favorable schedule, and then got revealed at the end of the season. Add plus verb says the offseason has shown the team is win now. I agree with that. And what about the organization wanting to learn if JJ has it or not quickly? Can't say he didn't have the line of receivers or defense to make it. No, that's very true. And that's the line we're all going to have to toe, though, with JJ McCarthy, because there are going to be rookie moments. There are going to be some bad games mixed in. And that's just something that comes along with someone who's inexperienced. But if they are making all their moves to win now and they know JJ McCarthy better than we do from the inside, they're saying, we believe in this. We believe in this route. We believe in this kid. We're doing it. And the fact that Brock Purdy was in his second year, went to the Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts was in his third year. Jaden Daniels last year was in his first year and went to the NFC Championship. Like this has been done by young quarterbacks a lot if they have every single thing around them. They have that already, and we've seen it work. And the Vikings look like San Francisco. They look like Philadelphia with the supporting cast around him. So that's what they're going for. I agree. No excuses. And you're right. They do have to have an evaluation. The only problem is with that is if you end up somewhere in the middle at the end of the year, then what do? Like they really do have to ride this out with JJ McCarthy over multiple seasons to see what they actually have, because it doesn't always show itself in the first year, but they have made the bet that it's going to. That's where it's interesting, is when you have these two different competing forces. On one hand, a veteran roster absolutely ready to win, but normally when it's a young quarterback, we're saying give him time and give him space. But in this instance, he doesn't have it. I think with his maturity, though, and the way he carries himself, he's fit for something like this. Rich says, do you think if Addison screws up before minicamp, do you think the Vikings will trade him? I don't know. I don't know what to do with that. If he does something before, would they trade? I don't know. People seem to want to talk about Jordan Addison being traded. I don't want to talk about Jordan Addison being traded. I think it would be a bad idea. And since last year, there has been no issues with him, and he was really good last season. He's going to be one of the best friends of JJ McCarthy. I don't know why that keeps cropping up of trading Addison. That's like, is that boredom? Like, just, hey, can we trade somebody? Because it's been like 4 days since they made a signing or a draft pick or something. Because I don't really get that. That's been a talking point for some people this offseason. It makes no sense at all. I mean, yeah, it's a different conversation if something happens, but framing it that way, what am I supposed to say? Let's just all hope for Jordan Addison's safety that he does not, and they can just go forward with him being a really good football player. That's what I think. What would make this year a failure, and what would make 2020? I can't think about 2026. We're in May of 2025, but I mean, if they miss the playoffs, it's a failure. I think it's really simple that in that way, right? If they don't make the playoffs, it is a failure. If they make the playoffs and it's a 9-8 slide into the playoffs on the last day and then get run out of the playoffs quickly, then that's also probably not a success story. If you move on from Sam Darnold, you're saying we can do better. So do better. That doesn't even have to mean win 15 instead of 14, but it might just mean win the division. It means win that week 18 game, that type of game that's going to be a difference maker, or put up a better fight in the playoffs. I mean, if they go 10-7 and JJ McCarthy plays great in a playoff game and they lose 27-23, I don't think we're going to say the season was a failure. But if it's the same exact results of, well, they were just good, but not good enough, that's not the bet they made by going to McCarthy here. The bet they made was that it was going to be better, so it has to be better. That's it. Yeah, but giving Addison the benefit of the doubt, I think, is the right thing until proven otherwise. And I was just as critical of him last year about his actions off the field. And it's a different story if something else does happen than how I feel right now. But I think any talk of trading him is just needing to talk about something, I guess. But there's no real idea to that at all. This is one of the main reasons you have so much confidence in JJ McCarthy is because he has a guy like Addison. So I don't know. Steven says they had a great offseason, but they did not mortgage their future, just giving away draft picks in trades. Yeah, no, they didn't do that. They didn't do that this offseason, but we could see it in the regular season. We could see them, make a trade at the deadline or something like they've done before. I think it's pretty clear that they are interested in doing stuff like that when they get a chance. Like even last year, they didn't have to trade for Cam Robinson. 2022, they didn't have to trade for TJ Hawkinson, but that's kind of the mode that they're in. Rich says, what's your hot take for training camp? Who rises and falls? We're so far away from training camp right now that I have not thought that through. But I think when we're talking about anybody who's going to get a new opportunity, that's the person who could rise. And that's like a Mekhi Blackman or an Isaiah Rodgers. It seems like Rodgers is going to start. It's a Theo Jackson. Could Theo Jackson rise and be the player they're talking about, or could he fall potentially and have Jay Ward take his job? So I did, by the way, I did prepare this evening a bunch of questions and a roster projection for a 53, like a spring 53. So let me get to that in just a moment. I'll answer one more question, then let me get to that in a moment. I put a question about each position group and who I think is going to be on the team as of right now. Son of Beavers, the backup center is going to be Ryan Juergens. That's who it's going to be. Not Ryan Juergens. It is Michael Juergens. Ryan Kelly, Michael Juergens. Skywalking McCarthy, will the ownership give Kwesi as long of a leash as they gave Spielman? Spielman got 3 cracks at quarterback. It was GM for 15 years. Well, he doesn't even have a contract for next year right now. So one step at a time. Are they going to give Kwesi 15 years? I have no idea. What I know right now is that the organization is running at about the highest level of operation of anybody in the NFL. From what they've done in free agency to the culture they've built to the coaches that they have, Kevin O'Connell. And it seems that the relationships there have worked themselves out to the point where they're making good, smart decisions to build a winning team. I don't know why you'd want anybody else running your team. I also am not able to look 5 years in the future and see what it looks like if they were to extend both of these guys. So, I think what they want is the organization to continue running this way. And when an organization runs this well, you don't want to change it. Think about what they've done in Pittsburgh with Mike Tomlin, how he has seemingly the floor forever, right? As the head coach. Well, the reason is because it's hard to find good head coaches. They get hired and fired constantly. Look at that 2022 group of hires. I don't even think Kevin O'Connell was the highest profile hire of that offseason. I remember him being maybe the last guy getting hired, and yet he's still around. But a lot of those guys aren't. They've been fired already. And Brian Daboll's on the hot seat. Like, that's how it goes in the league. When you have a coach and a general manager who can build on timelines, get a lot of free agents in, win a lot of football games, put yourself in positions to go places in the playoffs, potentially. They haven't done it yet, but potentially, like being in those spots, you got to win 14 games to have a chance to disappoint your fan base. And they've done it now twice. Like that's way more good than it is bad. You could be the Browns and just be a laughing stock, right? So I think they are as healthy as they've been, and that's where you want them to go. With Spielman, the big Spielman and Zimmer, the big bang there, I think Rick Spielman was doing a good job building his team around Teddy Bridgewater. And had Bridgewater stayed healthy, heck, they got to the NFC Championship game with Case Keenum. Bridgewater was a more talented quarterback. They had done it the right way. They had built through the draft and free agency. And then when that didn't work out, they totally changed how they did business around a Kirk Cousins contract and with the pressure of winning. And that's what split Spielman and Zimmer and ultimately cost them both their jobs. I think that Rick largely knew what he was doing. It's just that once you have that pressure and once you have that big contract, it makes everything so much harder. And then you start doing things out of desperation, like trading for Chris Herndon. But as far as giving him space, if you owned a business and your CEO and your CFO had just had 3 really positive years for you and the employees were happy and grading your workplace really well, and the profits weren't the best of all time, but they were better than they were before and pointing the arrow up, and your future looked good, I think you would just decide to keep those people in charge. So Mama says, got a call from Spielman. He wants everyone to remind everyone in the chat that he drafted Justin Jefferson. He certainly did. He certainly did. Look, I mean, I just think that, and Christian Darrisaw too, on a trade down to draft Christian Darrisaw. But then, Rick had his mistakes in the draft as everybody else does. Uh, with Spielman, I think if he would have had the ability to, well, first have a coach that didn't take it out on him that he signed an expensive quarterback. But if he would have had the ability to draft the first round quarterback where the Vikings did, it was a blessing that Kirk Cousins got hurt, because then they could draft JJ McCarthy in the top 10. If he was able to draft a quarterback there in the same spot in a great quarterback class, and then have the freedom to tear it down and build it back up again, I think he could have done it. It's just that they had reached the point where if your coach and your GM aren't working together anymore, just make a change. And I think they did that for the right. I did see Rick on draft day with the Jets. I guess he's doing that now. So let me run through some of these big spring questions. Let me run through those. I'll give you the 53 man who I got at each position, and then we'll do Clay's corner for a bit before we get to the Wolves game, and then you can all go watch and hopefully they make some threes. So let me start out with the quarterback room, and this is a 53 man projection before the spring, because why not? Like a post draft 53 man projection. So if you agree, disagree, have different thoughts, feel free. And then I have a big question for the spring. So just for OTAs and minicamp for each position. So we'll start with JJ McCarthy, Sam Howell, and Brett Rippon, 3 quarterbacks. And the big question is, how are the backup reps divided? Will Max Brosmer draw any attention? So if Brosmer looks good in rookie minicamp, will he compete for that quarterback 3 spot? And are we going to see a real competition between Sam Howell and Brett Rippon? I think at the spring level, we could get a feeling for that. At the OTAs and mini camps that are coming up in later on in May and into June, we could get at least a feeling. Is that going to happen in camp? Or is it just Sam Howell QB2 and that's how it is? I think it's possible that we see the reps get divvied up between those two, and it's not just all Sam Howell as QB2, because Rippon has a much better feeling for the offense because he's been here. Running back position, I've got Aaron Jones, Jordan Mason, Ty Chandler, and CJ Ham. That is very much for now. And the biggest question for the spring is, where does Trey Stewart fit in, the guy that they brought in as an undrafted free agent? And I should add to this as well, will they find somebody else who is a veteran player that they can bring in? So Trey Stewart, Jacksonville State, had huge numbers, kind of intriguing. If you watch, the highlight reel, everybody looks amazing in college. That's why they're here. But with running backs in this draft class, a lot of them were drafted, but there were also some UDFAs that were talked about as draft picks, or guys who dropped to the 7th round that we thought were probably better than that or had really good resumes. Maybe this is a year where you can get an undrafted free agent running back and he does something. So I'll be keeping an eye on Trey Stewart. And also if they bring in another veteran for the running back position to compete with Ty Chandler. The wide receiver position, pretty easy for my 53 man projection here. Jefferson, Addison, Naylor, Felton, and I'm putting Rondale Moore in there for now, but I mean, this could clearly change in training camp if he's not healthy and if somebody else emerges or he just doesn't fit in the offense the way that they thought he was going to fit, or he's just not the player that he used to be before the injury. All those things could knock him down, but he is the veteran player with a history of making plays in the NFL. So I'm putting him there for now. But the first 4 are set in stone: Jefferson, Addison, Naylor, and Felton. And then who that next guy is going to be a competition. Is it a deep cut guy? Is it a Lucky Jackson? Is it a Thayer Thomas, who have worked for a couple of years on the practice squad, or somebody that they bring in for rookie minicamp? Like that one is wide open. So I think there's 2 questions there for the spring. Number one is, how far can Felton come along before camp? Do we feel like going into camp, oh, okay, this guy is looking like he's really going to be part of the offense? And the other question is just, does anybody who's an undrafted free agent or a rookie minicamp invite Do they make things interesting? That is another thing that we'll be watching as well. Like, do they create a competition that was not there before, like a Thayer Thomas did a couple of years ago? And he got hurt in the preseason. I don't think he was ever going to make the 53-man roster, but he made things interesting throughout the spring is when he really caught our attention. And then going into the season, he got a lot of opportunity in training camp. So who's going to be that guy this year is always a spring question. Tight end position, Hawkinson, Oliver, and Gavin Bartholomew, the 6th-round draft pick. And the big question there is, what's the tight end 3 competition look like? So the 2 guys that they brought in for the undrafted free agents, Ben Urasek from Georgia, and then Bryson Nesbitt from North Carolina. Both of those names sound made up, but those are actually real people. And they will be competing with Gavin Bartholomew, who sounds like somebody on Days of Our Lives. That is our tight end competition at this moment. They could always add somebody else to the mix. And then we get the famous, we go through the whole thing, we break down all the competition, and then they just bring in somebody else's guy that got cut and go, well, we talked about that every day. And then it's just Blake Bell who gets brought in out of nowhere. Tight end 3 could be that. But for now, what's it look like going into training camp? Is it going to look like neck and neck, or is it going to be clearly those top 3? That's what I've always viewed the spring as sort of setting the stage for training camp. It provides us with the questions, but not the answers. So it will provide us with the question, like, is this going to be a real competition? And we will not ask that question if it's very clear that it's not. But if Urasek makes it interesting, or the other guy makes it interesting, Nesbitt, if they make it interesting, then okay, well, now there's a question about who's going to be tight end 3. Offensive line, I will rapid fire through this. Darisaw, Jackson, Kelly, Fries, O'Neill, Brandel, Juergens, Skol, and Rouse are the offensive linemen. And the biggest question is, in the spring, will it look like the 2 undrafted free agents have a shot? Logan Brown and Joe Huber, or at least a shot at getting on the practice squad or being something for this team. There's not a lot of physical play, but we can always look at those reps. Are they mixing in somewhere? Does it seem like the coaching staff likes them? Setting the stage for those guys. Will they be allowed into this competition with players like Michael Juergens and Walter Rouse? I think Michael Juergens is a lock for being the backup center. And I also kind of think Rouse is a lock to be a swing guy as well, but you never know. So let me get to the defensive side, and then we'll go to Clay's corner. Clay is waiting on the sidelines. He'll jump in here shortly, and you can keep asking questions, comments. We'll do it all until 7:30, and then when the Wolves get going, it'll be time to go watch some basketball. Outside linebackers: Grenard, Van Ginkel, Dallas Turner, Bo Richter, Gabriel Murphy. And I will be interested to just see in the spring here, OTAs and minicamp, where Turner is fitting in. Does it look like he is playing a Patrick Jones role? Does it look like he is swapping in and out with the outside linebackers that normally start? Does it look like they're doing something interesting with him that they didn't do last year? And just how he looks in general will probably be some sort of takeaway, but I don't want to do too much with that. I don't want to do too much with, well, it looks like he's up like 17 pounds from here. I mean, unless it's really noticeable, you don't want a guy to just throw on a bunch of weight between January and May and then not be ready to play 17 games. Like, Dallas Turner is still going to be a guy that you want to be very flexible and quick. Like, you don't want him to just jack up and put on 1,000,000 pounds. So I don't expect him to look wildly different, but how's he fitting in? And then is there anybody else in that undrafted free agent room to pay attention to for the outside linebackers? Defensive tackles, I've got Jonathan Allen, Javon Hargrave, Harrison Phillips, Jalen Redmond, Ty Ingram Dawkins, and Levi Drake Rodriguez. I left out Taki Taimani, but I didn't feel great about it. They might just have all of those guys in there, or somebody might be the odd man out. Like, we liked Redmond last year, but it's not like it was John Randall or something. Maybe it could be him. Ingram Dawkins, I think, is a pretty good chance to make the team. Levi Drake Rodriguez did enough last year that he should also be on it, but Taimani made it out of camp. So clearly they like him too. I couldn't on this 53 fit everybody that I like. to be in that spot. They have a suddenly very deep defensive tackle room. And I added to the spring, are any of the younger guys mixing in? So is it just all the veterans with the first team, or are we going to see some sort of rotation that looks like it's happening early on? Linebackers, Blake Cashman, Ivan Pace, Eric Wilson, Kobe King, and Brian Asamoah. I still have Asamoah on the team, but that was my biggest question, is if there is a competition, if we get the sense over the next few weeks when we get OTA and minicamp access. Next week is really schedule week, and then I think it's after that, but I don't have a schedule yet, so we'll figure it out. Or I didn't see it. I don't know. Some of you guys are like, when is this? When is that? Like, I don't know. If it's not tomorrow, I might not know. That's how I live my life. But is there a competition? Does it look like those two are competing for backup spots? Because King is a little more of a thumper type guy, a little more aggressive, but also Asamoah is a key special teamer for them. And I don't know that you want to get rid of somebody who takes up so many special team reps. The amount that they use their linebackers, the amount that they rotate, I think you want to have a few more bodies there. Cornerback position, Murphy, Isaiah Rodgers, Mekhi Blackman, Jeff Okudah, and Dwight McGlothern are on the 53 there. And the big question in the spring is, does it look like Dwight McGlothern is going to get a chance to compete with those guys? And I guess I would even throw Jeff Okudah as well. Does either one of them look like they're going to get a chance to compete with the apparent starting three of Byron Murphy, Isaiah Rodgers, and Mekhi Blackman? Because if they do look like those guys are getting in for some first team reps, then that makes training camp very interesting, because then it's going to be a daily who's getting the reps, who's making plays, stuff like that. Right now, I've got it written mostly in pen, but if McGlothern and Okudah make it interesting, that could change the shape of this cornerback room. All right, just two more here. Safety position, Harrison Smith, Josh Metellus, Theo Jackson, and Jay Ward. That's really easy. And is there a Jackson and Jay Ward competition? I don't think there will be at the start, but Jay Ward may have an opportunity to show that he can do something. I think Theo Jackson is pretty well set the way they've talked about him. And is there anybody else that's coming through the pipeline at the safety position? Like, that's not that many guys right there for a unit that uses three of them on the field at the same time. Is there somebody else who's going to make a name for themselves? An undrafted free agent. They brought in a guy named Michelle Powell from Miami. You never know what undrafted free agents could just pop up all of a sudden on the Vikings and their safety room. It's happened many times through the years. Or if there's somebody else they bring in. And to round out the 53, I've got a name that maybe you guys don't know is on the team, but I think he'll make it. Ryan Wright, Will Reichard, Andrew DePaula, and Tavere Thomas. I think I'm pronouncing that right, but I'm not 100% sure. He is the special teams specialist from, I think, Tampa Bay that they picked up. Kind of a low-key signing, not somebody's going to, and he might be the backup safety. But he is a special teams expert. They lost Trent Sherfield, I think, and they also cut Najee Thompson. So I think he's going to be the guy. And the big question, of course, is, and I left the best question for last with the spring preview, is there a punter battle? Is there a real punter battle? Not one of these fake punter battles, not this punter battle that you get told, oh yeah, they're going to have a punt off, pew, 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 and then they don't do it. I feel like you have to have been watching for a long time to understand my obsession with the punter battle. Okay, with that, since I noticed all of you did not log off at the same time, let me answer one more question here, and then the undrafted free agent linebacker from Auburn is a dark horse. Let me see, who's that? See, the punter from Auburn. Oh, Austin Keys. Okay. And there's another one, Dorian Masai. I'll keep an eye on those guys. They were really into Auburn this year. Okay, one more question, and then Clay's corner. Sean says, I know Rouse is huge, but he has hyper intelligence. Any chance he could end up at center, or does height make him ineligible for that? Doesn't make him ineligible. I mean, there's been very tall centers in the past. I think it's maybe center is one of those, you got to be very quick. Guard, I mean, you still have to be quick, but center, I mean, you are starting with an arm tied behind your back. I don't know if a lifetime tackle if the feet are going to be quick enough in order to do that. But you're right about his IQ, certainly high. Certainly high. But I think he could maybe shuffle into guard or just learn both positions to be the next great Jeremiah Searles. Okay, let's bring in intern Clay Petrie here for Clay's Corner. We do this every Monday and Thursday where Clay either gets rankings or draft grades or whatever it is, or questions. We're going back to our usual model of questions this evening. So you've put together 5, and we have 26 minutes till I'm getting out of this chair and going to settle myself on the couch for the next. Well, I was going to say 2 hours, but if the Wolves shoot like they did last time, I might just go for a jog after the first quarter if that happens that way. But what is up, Clay? How are you?
I'm good. Let's get these 26 minutes going then.
All right, let's fire it up.
Yep. We actually had a piece of real news. George Pickens was traded to the Cowboys for a 3rd and 5th round pick. How do we feel about this move for both teams?
Sorry, I was taking a sip of the Diet Coke. I thought you were going to talk longer. I feel great for the fans of Pittsburgh because they got to talk about a trade, and I know there's jealousy. I know there's jealousy here that we want more trades. No, I'm just making fun, but something must be really wrong with the relationship between the Steelers and Pickens, and I don't know who to assign blame on, but you tend to think that the player was problematic. I also tend to think they've had the worst quarterback play maybe in the entire NFL over the last couple of years. They haven't had someone who can even remotely throw the ball to George Pickens. But if you're him, you really can't go half-hearted as often as he does. The games are on TV. Everybody can see you. And I think that he embarrassed them last year with some of the effort that he made. He is a very, very talented player. And he's going to play in an offense. I mean, Brian Schottenheimer is known for running the ball, but who are they going to run it with? They're going to throw the ball 700 times. So George Pickens is going to have a ton of opportunities. It has been a long time since you could say, wow, I think Dallas may have come out good on this move they made. This might be the one. They have a good roster, but they desperately needed somebody to go along with CeeDee Lamb. They didn't give up a whole lot. It just makes you wonder, though, if you're not giving up a whole lot, that means Pittsburgh really wanted this man off of their football team. And if the Pittsburgh Steelers let someone go with Mike Tomlin, usually it doesn't go well after. I saw everybody sharing around this statistic about how everybody performed after they left Pittsburgh, like all their receivers, which is crazy. Like, do you guys got a type or what? I think this will be the exception, though. I think George Pickens is going to get what he wants, which is the football with the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, if I was a Steelers fan, I would be so conflicted because part of me, I would be extremely upset. Like, you get DK Metcalf and George Pickens. The fan base has been calling for a second receiver for a while now, and they finally got one, and then didn't even get to see him play. So it starts, especially since both of them are like really good deep threats, and it would really open up their style of play, which is running the football. I think the Steelers offense is such a scary place right now. It's like they lost their leading passer, rusher, and receiver in the offseason. So it's just like hard to imagine what that team's going to look like. But on the other hand, if I'm a Steelers fan, it's like you said, Mike Tomlin and the Steelers clearly have something where they see in George and they're like, we cannot have this in the locker room. So instead of letting him go for nothing next season, might as well go add some draft capital. So, and it's like, this is like my favorite move the Cowboys have made all offseason. It might be the only one that I liked. I was kind of making fun of them the whole offseason, but then they did this. So it could work out for them.
I was going to say it might be the only move they made this offseason period. It felt like they were very quiet. I thought they had a decent draft, but we'll see how any of that plays out. Their over-under I saw today is only 7.5. I don't agree with that. I think they're going to be better this year. Last year, everything went wrong for them. Dak getting hurt. Trayvon Diggs getting hurt. Micah Parsons getting hurt. It was one of those calamity years, and they couldn't guide through it. But the Vikings have to go there and play this year, and facing George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb could be pretty tough. Those are two big and fast wide receivers, especially Pickens with his size and his ability to go up and get it, is really impressive. It's just, I mean, when a guy is sent packing by a team that really needs him, then you're always throwing up some serious question marks. But with Pittsburgh, for so long, the only way that we have talked about Pittsburgh is classiest organization, incredibly coached, just the cream of the crop to be able to be over 500 every year, even if they haven't had the best quarterback play and all that stuff. I think they're cracking in that foundation pretty bad over the last couple of years. The Kenny Pickett draft pick, when he's really more of a backup quarterback talent, and then not being able to figure it out after that. Russell Wilson was a good try, but that came apart and really should have stuck with Justin Fields. I think that was going better than it had gone at any point with Justin Fields, and then they just make the change. Wilson, it looks good at first and then collapses at the end because the guy's toast. And when you're always having now players every year start to rebel and have issues, then you do start to go, well, how much of it does come back to what types of guys they're bringing in? And also, is it connected to Mike Tomlin? I was shocked. The NFLPA survey this year was not nice to them. They were actually quite poor in their ownership and in their coaching grades. That was something I wouldn't have expected. It feels like they are going to be very stubborn about not making a coaching change, but we might be approaching that. And even just hiring Arthur Smith, I mean, the most uninspiring type of hire, a guy who thrived when they had a lot of talent in Tennessee, Derrick Henry. They could run all the time and build everything off that, but then try to run the same stuff in Pittsburgh last year. I don't know. I think they are in tough. They're one of those franchises where you go, they're just kind of irrelevant right now. And it certainly doesn't help when you trade a guy who's a borderline star wide receiver to be more relevant. Both of those franchises had been so good and they have the reputations from the way back, but in the recent, it's kind of a bad team trading or a middling, mediocre team trading whatever I just said, mediocre, middling team.
Yeah, it seems like the Steelers are almost stuck on the idea of let's just win 10 games instead of let's try and get back to the Super Bowl. Because it seems very just like stuck. Like they won't evolve or advance. They're kind of just what they've always been. And I guess we're seeing that can't just keep working year in and year out. So,
I mean, this is how it goes though, right? Like when you are look at the Indianapolis Colts, like post Andrew Luck, just fumbling in the dark. I mean, they draft somebody, it doesn't work out. It's same with Pittsburgh. And if you don't have that guy, there's no model. There's no model to win without Ben Roethlisberger. It's if he's great and he's there, you're going to win and you're going to be a serious contender. And if he's not, and it's Mason Rudolph or Duck Hodges or Bubby Brister or Neil O'Donnell, these are old quarterbacks. You're just not going to get it done. Although Neil O'Donnell did get them to a Super Bowl in 1995. Anyway, that's the cue to move on to your next question.
Yep. So, well, with that George Pickens trade, I feel like it kind of reopens that conversation for who has the best receiver room in the NFL. So I wanted us to rank our top 3 or top 5 rooms in the NFL.
Okay. Why don't you begin with who you think is the best?
Yeah, I feel like this has to be number 1. It is the biggest no-brainer for me, and it's the Bengals. I think Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson are pretty much interchangeable as the best receiver in the league, but everyone else is kind of like so far below them. And then you have T. Higgins also, who I think he could be a top 10 receiver if he had his own core to kind of lead. So when you have those two guys on the same team, it's hard to really look at anyone else.
Yeah, I think T. Higgins re-signing there was absolutely enormous for them. It's pretty clear that Joe Burrow held them hostage. It's like you absolutely have to do this, but he's exceptional. His ability to go up and get it, possession receiver. When he runs an out route and you can throw the ball 5 yards out of bounds and somehow that's a reception, the way they play off of each other. The wide receiver 3, who is what? Now, I'm not going weighing that very heavy for the Cincinnati Bengals, but I am curious who their wide receiver 3 is.
I want to say it could be the kid from Princeton, Iosivas.
Iosivas, yeah.
I'm not sure if they have someone else above him.
Do they count? Yeah. Well, Mike Gesicki, are we counting tight ends?
I was looking just at receivers.
Just receivers, okay. Yeah. So, this is really based on the top 2, but so would be the Vikings, which would be my next pick. I think that the Bengals and Vikings are 1 and 1A in the entire NFL. And there's really nobody else who comes that close unless you've got another nomination. But just for pure wide receivers, those are the cream of the crop, number 1 and 2. And if Ty Felton adds something to the room or Rondale Moore adds something to the room, then they could be number 1 because I don't think Cincinnati has as much depth there.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Vikings have more depth. It could definitely make a bump, but it's like T. Higgins is just like, how do you have him as your number 2 receiver? It's like unfair almost. So I also had the Vikings at number 2.
Okay. Who's
My
next
third
on your
team,
list?
I had the Eagles because the 1-2 punch of AJ Brown and Devonta Smith is just really hard to deal with, especially since their run game is so good. It just makes it even harder to contain them. So I think I think AJ Brown is really, really slept on, and it's kind of the way that offense operates at times. It's hard to really give him the respect he deserves, but I think he's such a beast. And pair him up with Devonta Smith, and again, it causes problems.
I'm sure where AJ Brown gets flustered every year is just the fact that there are other quarterbacks throwing 700 passes and their receivers are racking up 1,500 yards and he's not. And well, they won the Super Bowl, so that's okay. But midway through the season, they had to do a fake handshake just to prove to everyone, no, we're good. We're on the same page, which I think is pretty clear that they weren't then at that point. But, when you win, nothing else matters. If they had a quarterback that threw the ball that much and they didn't have a quarterback who also ran, that group would get just as much in terms of the production. I think they're just as talented as the Jefferson and the Addison in the accumulation. And Smith, his ability to catch anything and everything in his range. There's another one where I wonder who their wide receiver 3 is and if there's an impact there because they throw to the tight end a lot, Dallas Goedert. But
Jahan Dotson, but I don't think.
Yeah, is he even still there? Yeah, this is part of my argument for draft wide receivers because even the best wide receiver rooms don't often have a third guy who you can really do something with. And if you do, it's an advantage. I'm a little bit torn here, but since I love drafting wide receivers when you don't need to draft wide receivers, I will pick at the number 4 spot, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Emeka Egbuka coming in along with Chris Godwin returns and Mike Evans, another 1,000-yard wide receiving season. They also had McMillan, who showed some signs last year. Obviously, they're not totally sold on him since they drafted another guy, but that is one heck of a receiving room, I think.
Yeah, it feels bad. I put the Bucs in like my honorable mentions, and I know they have the talent to be up there, especially adding Egbuka.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm still concerned about Godwin and his injuries, and they are getting older, so I don't know. I put a lot of weight into like the 1-2, and if Godwin comes back and he's not completely himself, then I could see a little drop off. But yeah, that room is really, really talented.
I just always try not to factor in injuries when we're doing off-season stuff because who knows, right? I mean, Aaron Jones last year, everyone's like, oh, he's not going to last. He's all banged up and everything. Plays 17 games. Like, I don't know. You just can't really predict these things. So let's see. Our list is Cincinnati, Vikings, Eagles, Bucs, and who's number 5?
Yeah, 5. I'm cool with throwing the Cowboys in there with this new addition. But I'm kind of leaning towards the Rams. I really like Devontae Adams and Puka, and I think their room's deeper. I like Tutu Atwell as well. And I know Jordan Whittington just got suspended, but he's also another solid player in that room. And the only thing that concerns me is the speed on this team. Puka's like just a very physical receiver, does a lot of his work after the catch, and Devontae's just that route technician. So I'm concerned for their big playability, but I think they could go get 6 to 8 yards pretty much whenever they want.
I was going to say the same thing. I mean, if Devontae Adams basically takes the role of Cooper Kupp, then that duo is good enough to push the needle and they belong there. And there's a few other teams that have kind of a case for being similar along the same lines. I think Chicago would be a team that you could make the argument if Rome Odunze takes a step forward and then they draft Luther Burden, but there's just question marks there. So you can't put them ahead of 2 guys in Nakua and Devontae Adams who have done so much. And that's what I was going to throw out there is like who has a chance to get in this conversation by the end of the year. And I think Chicago is certainly one of those teams. The Packers drafted 2 wide receivers. Washington could possibly be in there. And the low key one, because no one cares about this team, would be the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I was thinking about them a little bit too. Yeah.
Brian Thomas and Travis Hunter have a chance to
Mhm.
be one of the best wide receiver rooms in the NFL, but as of right now, they are not. And then just a shout out to a team that seems not only like they are refusing to get wide receivers, but do not ask them about it. The Buffalo Bills. I can't make any sense of this team not being in on wide receivers this offseason. I know Josh Allen won MVP. They were within a couple plays of the Super Bowl, but at the same time, at the late parts of that game against Kansas City, they couldn't find anybody. And Khalil Shakir is so much of an underneath guy that they don't have a deeper threat. I haven't really seen it from Keon Coleman. I just don't think that he's a difference maker yet. I mean, it's possible that he is, but to me, I would be saying the more options I can give my great quarterback. I feel like Kansas City has done this even post Tyreek Hill. They've tried, like Rashee Rice got hurt last year. That happens, but they have invested a lot, first round, second round draft picks in that wide receiver room. And that is just not something that Buffalo has done. So they, to me, it might be 32nd on this list. Aaron brings up St. Brown and Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams took a big step last year, big step. But how about this? Are you betting on Jameson? Get it? Because of the betting, the suspension. Okay.
Yeah, good one. I like it.
Yeah. There we go. Roasted him.
Yeah.
I think Jameson Williams with the ball in his hands is an absolute freak. I'm not sure I'd put him up there with some of the route running technicians, but they're still good. I mean, if we were adding tight ends, then Laporta makes them more complete, and so does Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah, I think JMO's more of a product of the scheme, and if you could get the ball in his hands, then go ahead. And then I think Amon Ra, I really like him. I was a big fan of his out of college, but I just never see him on the outside. And if you're just a slot receiver, it's hard for me to really rank you that high. That's why I see a bunch of people have him in like the top 5 receiver list, and I personally don't, just because I think you got to be able to play everywhere. But he is really good at what he does. But
I was gonna say he roasts the Vikings every single time he plays them, so it's hard
Yeah.
for me to knock him. But he's kind of like a Cooper Kupp in that way, where he's a possession wide receiver who gets open underneath, and he's just really good at his job. It's a nice combination that they have there. But I think if they didn't have Laporta and Gibbs coming out of the backfield, they would be a lot more limited. I did like that they kept Tim Patrick. That was a good move for them. He was kind of a low key extra weapon there. So, okay, I think we got a good list. Did you have anybody else for a horrible room? Oh, you know who could be a good room? Let me check who's there.
Did the Broncos add anybody?
No, I don't know why.
They might be.
I honestly, I don't get that one. Okay.
They just went more defense, which I'm not mad at, but
no, but I don't get that. Same with the Bill. Like you have Bo Nix. I was gonna say if the Giants, I remember them signing someone, but they kept Darius Slayton, who's kind of just a guy to me. So
I think he's like the wide receiver 3. Darius Slayton. It's like I don't think he could ever do more, but he's like a solid 3 guy.
I mean, maybe Kansas City could actually be in this. We kind of forget how good Rashee Rice was. Mm-hmm. And Xavier Worthy was just a rookie last year. Did they bring in anybody else? They drafted Jalen Royals, who everybody here seemed to love.
Is Rice going to get suspended?
I don't know. Hollywood Brown is also, he gets hurt every year. Maybe not. No, I think we got the right ones.
Yeah.
Okay, what's next? What's next?
Yep.
How do you and chat? Do you like those? Do you like that rank? The ranking again was Cincinnati, Minnesota, 1A, 1B, really, and then Philly, Tampa Bay, and the Rams. Do we like that list? If there's somebody we forgot, let us know.
Yeah. Well, my next question: PFF put out an article. It was kind of an interesting one. Players who have a chance to become the best in their positions in 2025. So no Vikings players were listed, but do you think any deserve to be? And also, do you think any Vikings are already there at that best position spot?
So you mean best player in the whole league?
Yeah, at that position. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's one that's obvious. That's
Jefferson,
right, Justin Jefferson. And then I think Christian Darrisaw. We'll see how he comes back from the injury. I think that he's very, very close. He may not be number 1, but maybe like number 3. That's pretty close. If Trent Williams is kind of not as good as he used to be, or at least it looked that way last year. Darisaw is right there. I think last year Darisaw was playing some of the best tackle in the entire NFL. He does. As far as defensively, Jonathan Grenard was very close to the best edge rusher in the league last year. Did not get enough credit for that. I thought from the All-Pro, it was Van Ginkel that got the All-Pro, so I would toss his name out there. But it's hard in a world where Myles Garrett exists. It's really hard to say that somebody else would be the person that would, anybody but Myles Garrett, because he's just owned that, and Max Crosby, but he's not that far away. I don't know if anybody else has that case. I mean, I honestly think Blake Cashman is one of the 5 best linebackers in the league. They kind of have that at a lot of positions, though, where it's like you're not number 1, but Jordan Addison is a top probably 25 wide receiver. And then, Brian O'Neill is a top 10 tackle in the league. He's probably not number 1 because he's a right tackle. Van Ginkel, Grenard last year were top 10 players at their position, probably not number 1. They kind of have that a lot, but maybe if Cashman played 17 games, he could be the most valuable linebacker in the league.
Yeah, I was thinking about Van Ginkel, and I think he's just in a weird spot because he is an edge rusher, but I feel like he does so much for this team. So maybe if there was like just an outside linebacker, I know they're kind of like very similar positions, but I think him and Micah Parsons are really the top 2 for that guy who could rush the passer, but also step back in coverage. Some of the names that were listed were a lot of like second-year players, like Jaden Daniels, Bijan, or Malik Neighbors, Brock Bowers. And I like a lot of those guys, but do we actually think they have a real chance of being like the best in their position in 25? I really don't think
I think Jaden Daniels does. I'm not predicting it. And Ham Darnold mentioned the Commanders getting Deebo Samuel, but I don't think the receiver room dictates that. I think that's just who he is. Like if Jaden Daniels if I told you right now Jaden Daniels won the MVP, you wouldn't be shocked. I mean, look at the way that guy played last year. He does. Brock Bowers is a weird one for me. I need to see more than playing on the worst team in the worst offense where they're just dropping balls off to the tight end all the time and he's getting 10 yards a reception. I know I've become like the tight end hater guy. I promise you I'm not. It's just that sometimes these guys put up fantasy numbers and we praise them to the ends of the earth, but are they really that big of difference makers? Is O'Neill the best right tackle in the league? I mean, he's got a case for it. He definitely has a case for it being the best right tackle. But I think the main idea of the article is someone who has a chance to ascend to that. I don't think Brian O'Neill is getting better. He's just retaining him being really, really good. So unless there were guys like retiring or something, I don't think he's going to find like a new level. I mean, Dallas Turner, there's the thing about Dallas Turner is like, he's not going to ascend probably to the best outside linebacker, but we don't know what he's going to be. I think with a Brock Bowers, we kind of know exactly what he's going to be. Who is the other one? Oh, Neighbors could be. Neighbors could put his name, but who's throwing him the ball?
How are you going to see I think Neighbors could be top 5 for sure, but then it's how can you be better than Jefferson or Chase? It's
right,
like, I don't really know. I feel like the only 2 guys I had, Jaden Daniels, I think, but it's also like when Lamar Jackson,
Mahomes, are you going to be better than Josh Allen?
Like, are these
better than
these
Mahomes?
really make sense? I think the biggest one is probably Jalen Carter. He was on this line for D line, and I think it's probably him or Chris Jones, maybe Dexter Lawrence. I'm not sure. So and he's also another guy, young, rising kind of player. So I think he could probably has the best chance to actually claim the title.
Aaron is right that Lane Johnson is the best right tackle. I mean, that's a Hall of Fame right tackle. So if he retires, then I guess O'Neill would have a chance. But I think that's not like the spirit of what we're getting at here.
These 2 guys get hurt.
I think that Jalen Carter is already very close to being there.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Other names on this list like Jack Campbell, Quinyon Mitchell, Jared Verse, but yeah.
Can I just say something about Jared Verse real quick, by the way? Because he's become this name where as soon as you say it, all Vikings fans are like, oh, you could have drafted him. You fire Kwesi. Like, so I had not looked. I mean, I watched him play really well in the playoff game, and I had seen the numbers as far as Jared Verse's pressures and how much he played. And of course, he was really good, really good. He's going to be a good player for them for a long time. but I never really took a minute to go look and what his actual stats were. Cause, I mean, I saw him in the game and whatever. Jared Verse had 4.5 sacks last year. Can I just say for a second, and I know like pressures matter a lot, and he had a lot of pressures and everything else, but the way that he's been talked about by Vikings fans in relation to Dallas Turner, like Dallas Turner had 3 and he had 4.5, and he played way more than Dallas Turner did. And we act like it's just they passed up on Lawrence Taylor mixed with Reggie White, mixed with Bruce Smith, mixed with Micah Parsons. And it's like maybe we could just let this play out a little bit for Dallas Turner before we decide that Jared Verse is the best player of all time and Dallas Turner doesn't deserve a jersey. So I didn't even realize I went back and looked, I was like, no way. I thought he would have had like 8 the way that everybody talks.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying he wasn't good. I'm just saying like, come on.
Yeah, I think he led the league in pressures, and then he was like one of only like a handful of players to have like a 80 plus grade in run defense and pass rush. So that's probably where a lot of it goes. But it's again, Dallas Turner's a young player. Yeah, but Dallas Turner's a young player. It's not like Verse had 10 sacks. He didn't do anything like we've never seen before. So I don't
I don't at all mean to say that and Ham Darnold is right that Penei Sewell is also the best right tackle. Yeah. Lane Johnson, Penei Sewell. Yeah. Those guys probably have the crown. But Ham Darnold is right that Verse came in as a 24-year-old. That's different. Mm-hmm. And I'm aware that he had all those sacks or all those pressures. Mm-hmm. And he probably also got it looks like kind of screwed on a couple sacks, at least by PFF's metrics. They gave him some more credit. He played 800 snaps though, and you're going to get opportunities to get pressures when you get 800 snaps. I'm not down on him. I think he was a really excellent player. I just wanted to pump the brakes on how could you possibly make this huge mistake? Like, let's get a year 2 first, and then we'll go from there. 27 months older. That's some good math from Ned. So let's let Dallas Turner play for 27 more months, and then we'll decide if that pick was okay. And something else just real quick that drives me crazy is if a player you draft turns out to be good, but the player drafted next at his position is great, then it's like, oh, they blew it. Oh my gosh. What were you thinking? It's like, what if he's good for your team? I don't know. Anyway, let's just move on.
Yep. So I have 2 more, but we're running out of time, so I'll cut it to just
if an NBA game tips off when it says it's going to tip off, the next time will be the first. So I think we have at least probably 5 more minutes.
All right, let's go for the fun one, because I saw a highlight video recently. I was scrolling through Twitter, and it was a Leonard Fournette when he was on the Jaguars, and he was balling, and I'm like, what happened to this guy? So it got me thinking, who are some of your favorite players who balled out for a year or 2 and then just went ghost?
It is kind of crazy because he also, you want to talk about drafting. Hold on real quick. This is an aside, but you want to talk about a crazy, insane draft pick. What year did he come out? Was it 2018? I think it was 18, right? Leonard Fournette, or was it 17? Oh, 17. It was 17, right? So Leonard Fournette comes out 2017 as the 4th overall pick for the Jaguars. And Mahomes, pretty crazy, but also Christian McCaffrey. I mean, even Hassan Reddick, like Marlon Humphrey, Jonathan Allen. This is a great draft in 2017 for first rounders, including the greatest quarterback of a generation. Marshawn Lattimore is mixed in, and they took Lenny Fournette. Also, the 49ers took Solomon Thomas. So even some franchises that you think are the smartest, like the 49ers, even they passed up on the best quarterback of a generation. Anyway, that was not your question. As a Madden player from 1994 through about 2012, I would say, Peyton Hillis is the name that comes to mind right away for the 1-year wonders, because Peyton Hillis had the crazy face mask. They did the fan vote. He had the neck roll, and he was really fun. And then I think, if I'm not mistaken, he got really high on himself and was trying to demand more money. And the Browns were like, you're not actually that great. And then he just sort of made his way out of the league. And I don't think he played past like maybe 2 years after he was on the Madden cover. That was insane.
Yeah. Am I looking at the right Peyton Hillis? Apparently, he played for a little bit.
Did he?
Yeah. So, I thought the Browns year was honestly his first year. This is my first time looking at his like stat sheet.
Oh no, yeah, he had
Yeah.
like been.
Yeah.
Actually, you're right. He did. I
Uh-huh.
have zero recollection of New York Giants Peyton Hillis.
Yeah. I didn't know that was a thing.
3.4 yards per carry.
Yeah, I knew about the Cleveland and then Kansas City. Everything else was kind of a blur.
Yeah, oh man, 7 games in 2013. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, that to me is the most obvious answer, but another one would be RG3. That first year was so incredibly exciting, and then the injury happens, and that was pretty much it. As far as wide receivers go, there was a guy named Michael Clayton who came into the league and was just fantastic. 80 catches, big guy, and I don't know what happened. Just sort of disappeared. Sidney Rice would be one of those for sure that year with Favre, and that was it. And then there was just no more for Michael Clayton. Kind of never happened again after that.
Yeah, we're kind of on the same wavelength here. I got RG3 just because when he came out of Baylor with the white sleeve and the white glove, it made everybody want to do that, even if you weren't a quarterback. And that team was just like pretty fun to watch with like Pierre Garcon, Trent Williams, London Fletcher, and then actually another guy who kind of belongs on this list, Alfred Morris.
Oh yeah.
He had like
there's
3.
a lot of running backs. There's a lot of running backs. Yeah, the deep fantasy players would tell you 53 guys. Steve Slayton that goes into this. Like there's a million guys who showed up for 1 year, were great, and then never to be heard from again.
Yeah, one of my favorites was Terrell Pryor. Just because when I was growing up, I played quarterback and then I transitioned to receiver. So seeing him in that 2016 season do that in the NFL and then have like 1,000 yards, I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. And he had some big plays too, so it wasn't just like boring stuff out there. So yeah, it was pretty fun to watch him.
I wonder if somebody, because Justin Fields still plays quarterback for a team, if somebody at even just a few years ago would have taken more time with Terrell Pryor, if it could have worked out, because he was a very explosive athlete. So anyway, well, now it is time for basketball. So great stuff. Very good. Clay's Corner. Clay Petrie, our intern from the University of Pennsylvania. Thank you, sir. I will see you on Monday then.
Yep. Thank you. Football.
There you go. Okay. It's getting better. That wasn't bad. All right. Well, basketball time. I wish the best of luck to the Wolves in making their 3-point shots this evening. Thanks everybody for watching. And tomorrow, maybe live show, breaking down takeaways from rookie minicamp. We'll see. Depends on if I actually have enough. Maybe I'll do something else if I don't, if I've only got a couple, but we'll see. But that's what I'll be doing tomorrow is going out there for rookie minicamp. So thanks everybody for jumping on, asking good questions, having a lot of fun, and we'll talk to you all very soon. Basketball and football